in the ALJ's findings or conclusions of law, providing a basis for applying a conservation savings to any projected shortages, period. And by the way, the general manager did not put on any witnesses at the contested case hearing on remand, period. The only evidence that the general manager put in the record was excerpts from the regional water plans, which did not include this information. It did include the top part, and it did include these numbers on the second page, and only cross-examined the NDOP's expert witnesses. That was all the evidence, that was their entire case. So the record is almost entirely uncontroverted with testimony only by NDOP's expert witnesses. Let's take a look at the remand PFD and specifically where the record only supports 46,000 acre feet. If you look at the February 25th, 2015 PFD, I'll go over the highlights with you of how the record only supports 46,000 acre feet. Finding of fact number 5, the ALJ concluded there are supply deficiencies within Travis and Williamson counties that could be remedied with NDOP's 46,000 acre feet of groundwater. Continuing on to findings of facts 26 and 28, to determine the amount of groundwater that will be used during a 5-year or 30-year period requires the examination of the population and water demand projections over a significant period of time, the reliability of current supplies for potential customers, and the cost of the proposed supply, among other factors. This hits to the issue that I mentioned earlier, that the water supply plans that include demands, projected water demand, and projected shortages is not the only thing that you consider in determining the amount of water that will be put to beneficial use in a given period. In other words, demand or shortage does not necessarily translate to use or the amount that someone would contract for. Finding of fact number 28, NDOP's proposed production of 46,000 acre feet could be used in the next 5 years, given the increases in population and water demand and the vulnerability of existing supplies to drought. And by the way, the regional water plans that are in the record are outdated. There will be new plans released next year. Let's look at 41 and 43, those findings of facts. The ALJ found that because water planners plan over at least a 50-year planning horizon, a permit for the full 46,000 acre feet is necessary to assure buyers that they can rely on NDOP's project. Again, supporting 46,000 acre feet. Finding of fact number 43, given the need to supplement water supplies, LCRA, Austin, Cedar Park, Leander, and Round Rock could potentially enter into a contract for NDOP to provide all or a portion of the 46,000 acre feet. And then finally, the ALJ concluded in a conclusion of law number 2, the authorized amount of water, 46,000 acre feet, could be dedicated to a beneficial use during the term of the permits. The number here at the top of the chart, 42,950, that I did tell you was in the record, and the ALJ discussed it in his analysis. So the ALJ issues findings of facts and conclusions of law, from which I just shared with you, but then he also at the beginning provides analysis and reasoning for his findings and conclusions. And that particular number 42,000 is on page 16 and 17 of his PFD on remand. And in footnote 63, he explains that the projected demand or municipal shortages in 2020 for Travis and Williamson counties amount to 42,930 acre feet. And he rounds up to 43,000. And then he goes on to conclude that this is not the only piece of information that was presented to me. That's not the way that you would calculate. Looking at this in isolation is not the way that you would calculate beneficial use in a time period. And you need to look at all these other factors. And therefore, the evidence showed 46,000 acre feet. And I conclude that 46,000 acre feet could be put to beneficial use. With regard to the DFCs, it sounds like we're not in disagreement about the mitigation conditions. I'm glad to hear that, so I won't spend time on that. But with regard to achieving the DFC and authorizing a permanent amount that could still achieve the DFC, That is in the original the original PFD, and there are findings specifically by the ALJ that discuss the numbers that Ms. Melvin talked about in terms of, yes, you're going to bust the DFC if you authorize more than X. Those numbers are included in his analysis. But if you read carefully and look at the findings, effects, and conclusions of law, the ALJ concludes those are just all predictions. There are problems with the GAM. There are, by the way, the statute that describes the process of how the DFCs are to be determined has been rewritten, and there are other factors that are now to be considered. And as you know, the GMAs are considering new DFCs as we speak that will be adopted in September under this new criteria that was in effect at the time of the contested case hearing, and most recently in the legislature last session, requiring groundwater districts to consider the best available science, and providing an appeal process to challenge the reasonableness of the DFCs. That law will become effective in September. Thank you. We respectfully request that you grant a permit for the full 46,000 acre feet that's requested.
Thank you. Stacy, before you sit down, I think we can take questions.
Oh, yes.
I've got one quick question, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
We had previously discussed the finding of fact, I think it was 38, and I had sent you I sent all the parties some proposed rewording. I didn't get any objections to that rewording, so I just want to verify that you're okay with us correcting that finding of fact.
And you were talking about in the remand PFD, correct?
That's correct.
38. Yes, on the contract negotiations, yes. If you feel more comfortable with that, we do not object, and we will
Okay.
be okay with that.
I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
One other question. On the conclusions of law, item 3, are you in agreement with what the judge stated about the general manager and the special conditions that he called for, that if you don't get your contract within a year, then you don't get the 46,000 feet?
Yes, excellent question, and I didn't have time to sweep that in there, but that does relate and is important to address Ms. Melvin's points. Yes, while NDOT disagrees that there is an authorization to require a contract, NDOT does not object to those conditions and submitted proposed conditions along with the ability to limit future production if necessary.
I'm sorry, I do want to clarify this. You're not objecting to future limitations as long as those limitations apply district-wide.
Correct.
You're not volunteering to only have your client limit their production.
Yes, important distinction. I thought that was implicit, but yes, absolutely.
Never implicit. Thank you.
Okay.
If the board has any questions, I think we're going to ask them. I don't think we should give her additional time, but if there's a question for her, probably.
Does anyone have any other additional questions? If not, we are posted for an executive session under the Local Government Code, Chapter 551.071, for